Taking a brief look at the natal chart of Orlando Brown. I don't have his birth time, but we can still look at a lot of different things that are happening in his chart. And one of the things I really want to look at is his north nodal placement because of what's happening in the skies today. So, Orlando Brown seems to either be masking himself or suffering from um, trauma and memories, which may have fragmented his mind. You know, I'm not a doctor or psychologist, but these are some of my conclusions. And so his way of operating is either coding through how he is explaining things, or it's very a spiritual language that one couldn't really grasp and comprehend with our human minds. Um, a lot of people have talked about schizophrenia in the spiritual community. While it is a real chemical issue in the brain, there is hints that spirituality would say that schizophrenia is connected to some sort of language or something that is trying to get through, right, but can't because of our human limitations. So, those are my first conclusions with Orlando Brown, or my theories. Now, when I look at his chart, one of the things that stuck out to me right away was that we currently have Neptune. Neptune, the planet that rules over Pisces and his illusions, delusions, at 29 degrees Pisces. And Orlando Brown has his North Node at 29 degrees Pisces. This is something that you just don't find often when somebody has a North Node in Pisces, because you have to be at a specific place and time to have Neptune transiting Pisces. And so he's come from some sort of past life, right, where he is deeply connected to divine timing in this life, because to have your North Node in Pisces and live in the same time frame where Neptune is transiting Pisces is very rare. So with him being here in this lifetime at this time and period feels very ancestral. It feels very cosmically divine planned, because for some reason he is essential in this journey in 2024, as Neptune is basically moving so slow, it's going to be sitting in this position. So his North Node is getting such an incredible activation from this planet that is so far away, but right at the same degree. You know, really, with astrology, we find that it's like mathematics and language. And the same thing I find to be with Orlando Brown. He seems to be in the interim of mathematics and language, spiritual mathematics and language. This could be of his own doing. I'm not quite sure. I'd love to know what you guys think. Or it could be the circumstances that his mind has fragmented to become. One thing that really stands out with this Neptune and the North Node is that I say that the North Node is where you take your shell off and you become vulnerable. With him having Neptune with the North Node, he is being very vulnerable with how he thinks, with how his mind works. He is really shedding light on how that processes is happening. And this is a very vulnerable state. Now, Pisces, one of the things that struck me vividly was that he basically identifies himself as being Christ-like. The son of Mary Magdalene is one that he talks about. And he also talks about the Illuminati and the 12 disciples of Christ, and saying that that's who the Illuminati really are. That's what he said in his recent interview. And I found that to be very powerful, because Pisces is deeply connected to the symbols that are connected to the entity that is Jesus Christ. And the Vesica Pisces can also be seen as connected to the yoni, right? It could be a symbol of the vagina, but it can also be a symbol of like this interdimensional transcendence. All of these things really strike out to me in his sense of who he is becoming in the North Node at 29 degrees Pisces. This is a very masterful, Christ like energy that is here to understand suffering and unconditional love at the hands of those he may have suffered by. That is the story of Christ. One of the things that I've also been hearing is that Jesus Christ was a truth teller and was put on the cross. One of the theories that I've heard recently is that Jesus Christ was put on the cross because he was a truth teller, because he had information about I guess, the government at that time. And maybe that was more religiously based, right? So we're seeing these parallels with Orlando Brown and how he identifies himself, and it's spot on. It's eerily spot on, you guys. Um, Neptune can either put more of a veil and a fog in your eyes, which I do feel is happening when he speaks, because it's really hard to comprehend. Though Neptune can also be like the Wizard of Oz coming from behind the veil, in which there may be incredible truths here in the divine mathematics of his language. It's just extremely difficult to decode. A lot of people may see it as frenetic, as completely, like it doesn't make any sense, very confusing. I see that this is possible because his north node, his north node makes a square with his Mercury, and this square off with his Mercury can also tend to be something that is, well, first of all, his Mercury is in Sagittarius and his North Node is in Pisces, so these are very preachy energies when they come together in a way that's kind of challenging. But he seems to do it in such a playful way. He's definitely trying to illuminate with having Mercury in Sagittarius. He's trying to tell you his truth. But the Pisces North Node is putting a lot of fog there. And so you have to hear it on an interdimensional spiritual level. And for those who have that ability, they may be able to decode this. But for a lot of other people, it could feel like a brain scramble. And that's also why you have to tread carefully with this. Some people may say that he has mental illness or schizophrenia, which could make some sense. It's hard to tell. It's very hard to tell exactly. But he is definitely connected to divine mathematics, which is language, as he actually said. And we know this to be true when we study astrology. He's also very much so said a lot of things about various celebrities, but the one person that I wanted to talk about was his connection to Jay-Z. This is because he says that Jay-Z is his uncle. This really did confuse me. But when you have a lot of Sagittarian and Aquarius placements, this does hint to extended family, and he does have a stellium in Sagittarius. So he could be speaking literally, or he could be speaking metaphorically, in the sense that Jay-Z being a Sagittarius and Orlando Brown having what it looks like 3 or 4, he has a stellium in Sagittarius. Um, that he really does see Jay-Z that way, and he may very much so come off that way, because Sagittarian can be like your in-laws, it can be extended family, uncles and aunts as well. Gemini could be that as well, and Aquarius could also represent that in certain interpretations in astrology. Now, what's really interesting is that he considers himself Christ, and Jay-Z is considered Hove, right? Or Jehovah. So this is what eerily really got me so eerie, because Orlando Brown and Jay-Z are both born on the same day. So his story has a lot to do, his identification of being the son of Christ, even though he says that Jay-Z is his uncle. I'm telling you, it's a mind scramble. But it really stuck out to me. That was another thing that I wanted to say, is that him and Jay-Z are both born on the same day. And it's very eerie that he has this spiritual connection to Jay-Z. One of the things that he says that also hints to his North Node in Pisces, is that you can have all of these people, these figures that we talk about in the Bible and even in Greek mythology, like all these different figures, Jesus Christ, Beelzebub, all of these devils, Satan, that they aren't just figures. Orlando Brown said in his interview that people are actually walking, talking examples of these figures. That also striked me with his North Node in Pisces, because Pisces is the mythology, it's the preservation of that. And I think that he truly does see that and believe that, even if these people, maybe some of these people are brainwashed and really believe it in their mind, or their ancestral spirit, something about their spirit is telling them that they are these characters. But what he's really trying to say is that what we see in mythology and tell in stories are actually still really living in today's human life. And I found that to be a very Piscean thing. It's just such a miraculous, out of this world concept, and yet it makes so much sense. A lot of us could be spiritual babies of certain entities, is how I interpret that. And he also really talks about his ability to connect to the spiritual realm. So he may be able to see those connections within other people, meaning, again, that this Neptune transit conjunct his North Node could be enhancing his destiny to be incredibly masterfully psychic. So this specific transit is the one that I wanted to focus on. If you guys want to know more about your North Node, check out my North Node worksheets. I'll be doing a series on the North Node too, and my worksheets help you to unlock your own North Node. So this is about destiny right now with Orlando Brown. He's here for that reason in many ways, and he does have synchronicities with being Christ-like, being misunderstood as Christ was, and being able to understand miracles through this North Node in Pisces. It's quite incredible, as an astrologer, to look at this, as a student of astrology. The other thing that I wanted to look at, because he has that stellium in Sagittarius, his ability to be lighthearted, playful, party, scandalous, even slightly perverted, all of that playful, joyous, party like ecstasy is coming out of his Sagittarius stellium. Somebody like this is able to go through the dark and still maintain illumination. This is a part of his work. This is a part of what he is meant to do. I'm curious to see how Jupiter interacts with his Chiron this year, as Jupiter is going to move into Gemini in May, actually very soon, but will hit the end of his of Gemini and hit his Chiron around next year. So I'm curious to see what that does, because that could hint more to his mental capacities, mental health, and really what's going on. But I do feel like he is a big part of ushering this new illuminated culture and helping to tie the bridge of forgiveness, compassion, because I think that he represents Christ-like in a way, being that you see the rise of so much truth-telling and exposing, and it can leave people in a very dark place, especially these types of heavy topics that we are experiencing. And so somebody with this type of energy helps people to stay illuminated, stay in their light, even though they're going through a dark path, which in a lot of ways, darkness isn't bad, but some darkness is. And I see his path with humanity is a chironic healer. He's got Uranus opposite Chiron. And so his Chiron looks at things as such a dissecting place that can be almost like a mental breakdown. but Uranus is his genius. And Uranus is where we're underprivileged and privileged at the same time until we recognize our privilege. Some of us recognize it, some of us don't. So he does seem to be connected and privileged to be illuminated. He comes into an illuminated space, as everyone who has Uranus in Sagittarius does. Um, but that was at a maybe a mental health cost. And so that is also some of the things that I also see powerful with him. He's got a Scorpio Mars, so he is a very strong in his sexual energy. Pluto near to Mars, he really is connected to his sexuality, and you see that he plays off of it brilliantly, because in a lot of ways I feel like he speaks on trauma in a way that is joking, and that's quite a masterful thing to do, to be in that energy when you're speaking on sexual trauma. So he still maintains his sexual health even if he's talking about traumatic things, which is absolutely incredible to witness. So I would love to go more on his chart. I wish I could see his time, but those are the things that stood out to me. One of the things that I wanted to walk away from was he has a moon in Taurus, and um, he talks about hunger in this interview. It was really hard to follow the interview, I'll be honest. But one of the things he said was that it's not he talked about hunger, and he said it's not that you're hungry, it's that you won't eat. It's not that you're starving, it's that you won't eat. It was something like that. And those words I wrote down and almost made me cry, because I understood suffering um from through his Taurus moon when he said that. This could have hinted to people not truly eating up their lives, right? And enjoying life as they want to. But I also could see it as the restraint, because when you've been traumatized, you may have these dark hungers that you don't understand, and you might starve yourself from those things. And I do see that his Taurus moon, right, does a sextile to his north node in Pisces, and his Taurus moon um, opposes his Mercury. So, yeah, I do feel like he struggles with what hunger is for him, and I feel like it might be something that it's difficult for him. It's challenging for him to express his true inner feelings with Mercury opposing the moon. So, that's my take so far, you guys. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.